Alright, I'm sure you can tell from this video, well, the title of the video, I'm going to be ranking each race in MMA to find out which one is truly the best. Now, this list might be controversial. I don't give a fuck, alright? All this is pure satire. This isn't meant to be taken seriously. This is just to start a discussion, because I think it's a little fun and goofy. Now, this is only for men. I don't care about the women in MMA at all. I couldn't give a shit at all what happens to the women, what races are better for the women in MMA. This is just about the men. So this is where the boys are gonna have a little chat. All right. So now this might not have every single 1.2 million fucking races there are in the world, but it has the general consensus, I guess, the major ones, so anything Asian, Japanese, fucking what's what's that other one? Thailand, what are they called? People from Thailand. I'm my brain's fucking, I think it's just Thai people, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's Thais. So we're doing Asians now. Oof. This is actually rough, because if this is encompassing all of it, you know what? Chalk that, chalk that. This is just gonna be like the white Asian, so like the Japanese, we'll do Japanese, Chinese, because I could lump them in the same. We're gonna say they are, but recent, like Korean as well. This would be Korean. I think the exception would be like a Thailand. I think Thailand deserve their own. They're not here, but where would we put Asian? I think they deserve. I'm leaning toward. I'm gonna put them in B, just because a lot of their skill set is dated. All right, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Actually, I do. Yeah, it's old. A lot of Asian fighters tend to leave their chin up in the air. And that often leads to them getting chinning. I do think they actually have good chins, but they have this, like, I don't know what it is in them. They just always leave their chin up. I have no idea what it is. You'll see it with like Korean Zombie. I know he's retired, I think a year ago or whatever. But you'll see it with like Josh Quinlan. You'll see it with like even like a Tatsuro Taira. Like, they always leave their chin so high up in the air, like asking to get chinned. Now, normally they can take fucking punishment, when you're not 37 or over, like Korean Zombie. But I think Asians, they're pretty strong, in terms of the strength level, they're definitely not like, they're not like top tier, but typically they can compete. They have good matching of energy when it comes to their competition. We'll get into a few of them, but sometimes it's a little hard to match a competition's your other peers' strength. Like white people tend to not really be able to match that type of strength, but we'll get into that. But no, they seem to be strong. They seem to have good chins, but they're just like really dumb with their chins and they leave it up. And their ground game is normally really good. Normally they just have inherent jujitsu, probably because Japanese originally had jujitsu and then Brazilians stole it. Looking at you, Brazilians. Just saying. So originally jujitsu was Japanese. So I think they all just have it from the breeding line. So I think Japanese are normally just like good. That's why I think Japanese flyweights and like Korean-ish flyweights, because I think there's like K-pop stars down there now. I think they do really well, purely because they just have that grappling in their genes. So ground game pretty strong. I definitely rate the ground game like an A. Chin I'd rate like a B. Striking honestly like a C. Technique I'd probably rate it B. It's not too bad. It's not terrible. Cardio's also about a B. It's not like extraordinary. You're never like, wow, this Asian's got fucking cardio on him. You know what I mean? I think it's, sometimes you see them gas in the third round, which normally makes sense when they do high paces. So I think Asians sit at a comfortable B. Now, this doesn't include Thai people. I believe if we were to rank Thai people, I don't know why it's here, why it's not here. It should be here. I'm not gonna fucking add a file. But pretend we're ranking Thailand people. I'd probably put them at A, because while Thailand people, their grappling is fucking awful. Normally, like, they'll never be able to submit you, but they normally have really good grappling defense. Their grappling defense is probably a B. Their striking is close to an S, though. I'd argue like an AS. Thai striking is like one of the most well-known. You know, you got that Muay Thai, obviously. I'm trained in it a little bit, so, you know, I learned a little bit about it. Muay Thai, I think, is one of the best striking stances in the world, in my opinion. I just think Muay Thai as a striking stance counters almost every other striking stance. You know, if a Muay Thai guy is fighting a boxer, kickboxer, karate guy, Muay Thai has the advantage in almost every single scenario. Now, I'm not saying they win 100% of the time. Don't get an ego, okay? But I am saying that I think they have the most advantageous stance. So I'd be willing to put their striking like S tier. IQ seems to be okay. Sometimes it's a little rocky, but that's typically when they get up in age. Durability is very high. Now, they do get chinned, but a lot of them get chinned by other Thai guys. You know what I mean? A lot of Thailand guys you don't really see until they have like 100 fights, and you know, oh, they got knocked out, you know, for the 17th time or something. Well, yeah, I mean, they've won 100 fucking times. You know, Rod Tang, I think, is the obvious example when you think of that. But yeah, I'd put Thailand, Thai people, I'd put them at 5. I put Japanese, Chinese, Korean, all at B. I think they're roughly the same. You know, I'm not saying every race, you know, I'm not saying Japanese, Chinese, and Korean are the same race, but I am saying, like, in terms of MMA, you get what I mean. You know, so Thai, first A, and we got B. Moving on, we got Black. Now, this might be controversial, alright? And I know because of my skin tone, I might seem racist doing this. But I think it's a bad base. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to be honest, you know. I think, I take it back. I think it's second worst, okay? Now, unfortunately, the darker tone, you know, fighters, they typically have terrible chins. Their chins are some of the worst, notoriously. You know, that's why Drew Dober is such a high head count when it comes to a certain color. You know, they just don't have good chins. It's sad. It's sad, but it's true. You know, you see Jared Cannonier. I know he's 40, but he did get knocked out recently, and he got wobbled pretty bad the fight before. You know, it sucks, man. Or he didn't get knocked out in Kaio, right? He just got wobbled really badly again. So, you know, either they get dropped too frequently, and it's a little too, you know, even Jalen Turner's got a little bit of a questionable chin. Their records typically show that as well. Their records typically aren't that great, you know. I can't even remember the last time I saw a prospect who was like 20 plus and 1 or less, you know, in terms of the UFC. A lot of them just don't have great chins. Francis Ngannou, unfortunately, is another sad case of this fact. I know he got knocked out in boxing, not in the UFC, but you get what I mean. Rosenstrike, I could keep on peddling it. I don't need to. I don't need to kick a dead horse here. I think we all know their chins are one of the worst. Their striking is typically very powerful, not always technical. You know, their technique is probably about a C, I'd say. Their power level is probably like an A. Their ground game is typically non-existent. Very rarely do you see like a really good like black belt black dude. Just saying, you know, in terms of UFC. Now this might be different for jiu-jitsu competitions and wrestling competitions, you know. But I do think, unfortunately, I'm just gonna have to put them as second worst. It's like, I don't want to, because I do really like I do really like a Cannoneer or like a Anyways, moving on. Anyways, no, but there's some on. Oh, that's his name, Themba Gorimbo. Themba Gorimbo is probably the only one that is an exception to this rule. I really like Themba Gorimbo. I'm rooting for him to become champion, but man, is it fucking hard? You know, it's really hard getting up there. You know, with the horrible chin. The horrible chin is typically what's the downfall. You know, we see it with Neil Magny. We see it with even fucking Jeff Neal is like 50-50 sometimes. And whether it be the chin or the inconsistent technique, I think it's fair to say, you know, black people just, they have an unfortunate base for MMA, you know. Moving on, we have Brown. I'm gonna interpret this as the Indian kind, and they are without the doubt like the worst base for MMA. I don't know if you're Indian, just never do MMA ever. It's like seriously, you'll never be successful in MMA. It's not worth your time in MMA. You will be outclassed because everyone else works harder than you. Your bloodline is unfortunately weak for combat sports. Um, it's the sad truth. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why UFC doesn't go to India for its events, because you guys have one fighter and he has a fake record most of the time. You know, if you're getting knocked out by Mike fucking Breeden, who's 10-9, or I think he might have been 9-9 in that fight, bro. Like, that is the guy you're pushing for, okay? And it's sad. It truly is sad. So definitely Indian brown, bottom of the barrel. Get the fuck out of here. You shouldn't even start MMA. Literally, like, don't bother with MMA. Like, just don't. You're literally like wasting time. There's no point. It's way too late for you to be in the game. There's not enough of your population to even try out for MMA. It sucks. Listen, man, it sucks, alright? I'm Canadian, alright? And I'm telling you, you guys don't have it in the bloodline, okay? If I'm telling you you don't have it in the bloodline, you ain't got it in the bloodline, alright? You know, if Canadians are outranking you on the roster, yeah, you're cooked. Your race is cooked. I'm sorry, but your race is cooked. Mexican, uh, ooh, Mexican brown, eh? Tempted to go A, but honestly, like, this is, mind you, this is like UFC Nache. UFC Nache just happened. Almost all the Mexicans lost. I think I rate it lower than Asian, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, Mexicans, they're kind of dated, you know? We used to see a lot of them. They used to be a little bit more popular, but, like, now what do you have? Yair Rodriguez? That guy's a weak fucking soy boy. Yeah, he's got good technique, but that's about it. Typically, Mexicans rely on just grit and cardio. And other than that, they have nothing else. Their power isn't exceptional. Technique, not exceptional at all. Typically, they're pretty sloppy, to be honest. With Yair being the only exception, and that's probably the reason why he's cracked, you know, above the top 10. Outside of that, I mean, what else is there? Like, their ground game is pretty much terrible. They just kind of hug you and then hope for a win. Sometimes they pull out submissions, but it's not really consistent enough to be intrinsic to the race, in my opinion. So yeah, I think I just rate them lower than Asians. They're just like the hardworking Asian. Like, they've got better cardio than Asians. So in terms of a cardio match, I would probably trust the Mexican. But if we're talking about like an overall fight, I'm trusting the Asian. You know what I mean? Like, he's just got better technique and his ground game's in the breeding line. You know, but good cardio for Mexicans. Not a shit race, to be honest. And now, see, I don't know what race this is. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe I'm just whitewashed or something. But I don't know. Is this supposed to be like European? I don't know what the fuck that is. Let's just use this one as like the others. The ones that don't classify as Mexican, brown, black, or white. So, like, European, Persians, that type of shit. Like, I think Ilya would classify, like, Spain, I think, as well would count. I think Ilya would classify under this. Ooh. This is tough. Do I think they're better? I think I gotta say they're better than Asians. I mean, when was the last Asian champ? I don't even fucking remember. I think they're just slightly better than Asians, you know? Ilya speaks to mind. But outside of Ilya, what else is there? Fuck. I'm literally blanking right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna look up the UFC rankings right now. Like, what do we got? Ilya. Would that be it? Pantoja. Oh, like Brazilian, I guess, right? I guess we can lump Brazilian in there. I'd lump Brazilian in there. That makes sense. Mexican, we got like Brazilian and like dark European. Are they close enough though? I don't know. I don't know what fucking race this is. I'm just gonna say it's Brazilian. And if we're doing Brazilian, I think Brazilians are. See, the thing with Brazilians is that they're so inconsistent. But I think, ooh, I'd put them at A. I put them at A. I think I'd put Brazilians at A. Now imagining if there's a Thailand fucking flag here or whatever, I'd put Thailand over Brazilian for sure. The biggest issue with Brazilians, I think, is the inconsistency, but more often than not, they have pretty good everything. And I don't mean like they're all well-rounded fighters, but they typically have like either the best strikers or the best jiu-jitsu guys like of all time in the fucking divisions. You know, Alex Pereira obviously is a striking example, but you know, there's some heavy hitters like a Bruno Silva. You know, think that's his name. You know, who else? I think Pantoja would count. Pantoja would definitely count for that. Pantoja would be like the grappling side. So I think they're pretty good overall. Typically, they're honestly too, what's the word? They want to go to the ground oftentimes too much. And I think that's the biggest downfall of most of them. More often than not, it's better to just like strike it out. Most Brazilians have this weird thing where they're just unnaturally strong. Like most Brazilians are able to just knock you out of nowhere. It's just a thing Brazilians have. So I'd rate them pretty highly. I'll put them A. You know, just imagining that's Brazilian. I honestly don't. Maybe I'm racist because I don't know what that is, but I can't tell. Maybe my vision's just bad. And now we're going the good old white man. Now, white man, I'm doing American / English. You know what? Recently, ooh, recently though, I think just slightly below or slightly above, you know, blacks. As fucked up as that sounds. Now, my reasoning is, while we have Giga Chads like Tom Aspinall, I think there's so many white people that it kind of almost spoils it. Like, there's so many bad white people that we're slowly like washing away the good ones. You know, like Canadian, all of them are dog shit. If this was Canadian white would be only slightly above Indian, and I do mean like slightly above Indian. But because I'm encompassing America and England, I definitely put them right about here, I'd say. And yeah, so like you have the Tom Aspinalls, right? And then you have the Sean O'Malley's, which are really, really good. I'm not including fucking cliff dwellers on this, by the way. Those are a different fucking breed. Those would just be S tier because they're all born with a certain special vitamin in their bloodline. Just saying. But you know, you have the, I guess, Rikus Duplessis. Well, he's technically, yeah. We don't claim him as the whites. You know, he's more African than white. You know. But yeah, if we're looking at white, I'm looking at, you know, the Sean O'Malley's and the, yeah, like a Sean Strickland type of thing, you know? Typically, they have one thing they're good at and they need to rely on that one thing, and when they don't, they lose. For Tom Aspinall is the only exception because he's well-rounded everywhere. But normally his hands, I think, are just better than his grappling, just because he's got fucking dynamite in his hands. But if we look at something like Sean Strickland, if Sean Strickland just wrestled, uh, he would be able to be champion for probably the longest duration of all time. But he just wants to strike. Fair play to him. Giga Chad of him. but I think he's got wrestling genes in him, and that's why I think his striking sometimes won't win him fights. So unless the problem with white people is that literally we're good at one thing and one thing only, and when we don't do that one thing, we immediately lose. You know, Pat Sabatini gets knocked out because he tried striking. You're only good at grappling, you're a jiu-jitsu nerd, and you're stuck that way. You know, Ryan Hall, another example. Fucking, what else do we got? Steve Erceg, I'd argue Steve Erceg is only good at offensive grappling, and he very rarely does it. And that's why I think he's losing more now. You know, white people also typically have inconsistent chins. So some fights you see them and it's like, oh my god, crazy. You know, also white people have this inherent debuff. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna rank it. I can't rank it lower though. I really can't. I'm sorry. I can't. If we're going recent history, I can't. Is there a black champion? John Jones. I don't count him. Fuck him. Yeah, because there's more white champions than black champions, I'm just ranking white people a little bit higher. I think it makes sense. I think there's also more white people fighting, so that attributes to like the pool, I guess. You know, there's more successful whites than black people, you know. But in UFC, just saying UFC, I'm not racist. I don't think whites are actually better than black people. I don't, you know, again, this is all satire. Clarifying, don't hate me, you know, this is pure satire, and we're talking purely from an MMA standpoint. But yeah, the problem with white people is that damage is so easy on them, and once you get damage, you pretty much lost. Like, if a white person is facing a black, like, here's how I put it. White people in general have pretty much every perk most other races have, but the issue is that we're damaged much easier than every other race. Like, imagine you're playing a video game and you're setting like a spawning race and you spawn as white person, you get random perks everywhere. That's kind of what it's like, you know? If you spawn in as a black person in the race, you know, okay, your strength is super high, but your health is super low. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. With white people, it's like, okay, well, your chin could be really good and your cardio could be really good, but you have absolutely no power and you have no takedown defense, so you get fucking rolled on every fight because you just have a weird combo of things, you know? And that's where I think white people are at. Also, they wear damage horribly in comparison to every other race. Asians have really tight skin, you know? It's very hard to break an Asian's face, you know? Mexicans, it's kind of hard to notice when they're bleeding because typically their sweat like just like absorbs the blood and the blood kind of goes missing on their face. Brazilians. Brazilians are kind of the same thing with Mexicans. It just like absorbs back into their skin. Black people, it's impossible to tell they're damaged. If we were going based off like just you know, how damage is received, bro, black people would be S tier. If a black person has a broken orbital, bloody nose, their lip busted, and their eyes like popping out, you'd barely be able to fucking tell. Except maybe for the eyeball, because it'd be a white eyeball. But you know what I mean. Like, it'd be impossible to fucking tell. That's where I see that. But I do think maybe I'm too harsh. Yeah. White people just typically have a random fucking thing they're good at and a random thing they're bad at, you know? And sometimes it swaps mid-fight, you know? One moment Justin Gaethje has a godlike chin, the next moment his chin is fucking, you know... Or sorry, Dustin Poirier. One moment he has a godlike chin, the next moment he gets put out by a fucking random head kick that he even guarded, you know? Shit like that, where it's just like, oh, okay, well, no one was gonna fucking expect that. So that's what I'm talking about. The inconsistency level on white people is skyrocketed, but typically white people have one thing they're really good at and one thing they're really bad at. Bare minimum. If they have two things they're good at, they have two things they're bad at, you know? Just like in a video game, if you're spawning as races, you know, if you spawned as Indian, you pick the hardest class because you have immediate debuffs everywhere. Every stat starts at level 1. You're like the Wretch in Dark Souls 2. There's no point. You literally are just wasting time. If you spawned in as a black dude, you probably have insane power. Like your strength is almost capped out from spawn, but your HP is very low. Your If you spawn as a white person, you get random perks every time. You could be godlike, you could be dog shit, you know? It's just the luck of the draw. With Mexican, your stamina absolutely capped out. Everything else is like at a level 1. Ooh, now that I think about it. You know what? Now that I think about it, you guys really don't have ranked people, do you? And Mexicans really don't have shit anymore. If we're doing recency, I think I have to do it like this. I kind of do. It's rough for Mexicans right now, man. You know, they're just losing everything. They only have cardio. You know, at least with black dudes, they're able to, like, knock your ass out, you know? And some of them are, like, learning the art of ground game. You know, I think, Themba Garimbo, and what's that French one? I can't fucking remember. Starts with a T, I think. Fuck, I can't remember his name. He has really, really boring fights because he just sits and lays on people. I can't remember his name. But, that dude. That dude. I'd say, yeah, black people are probably better than Mexicans. Or white people? Yeah, white people definitely are. You Mexicans probably aren't going to get a champ for the next, like, decade, unfortunately. You know? I'm not even trying to be racist, but it's just, like, the cold, hard truth. Yeah, I'd say white people just barely better than blacks, only because white people have a chance to, like, be good everywhere else. Where black people are kind of just stuck with a bad chin. Um, Asians, I do think, if you spawned in as an Asian, I think you would have the most balanced stats with, like, one or two. Like, let's say if it was out of 10, all your stats would be a 5, but, like, one or two of them spawn in at 4. You know what I mean? So you're not fully all a jack of all trades, but you're close. Brazilians typically have most of their stats close to max, but they're typically lacking in one stat. So, like, when you're spawning in as a Brazilian, your strength might be like an 8 out of 10. Your stamina might even be like an 8 out of 10. And your jiu-jitsu is probably an 8 out of 10, like your ground game. But the problem is that your HP might be, like, very low. Like, it might be a 2 out of 10, you know? And you just get chinned every fight, you know? It really sucks, you know? I think a good example is probably a Bruno Silva, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. In middleweight, I think there's 2 Bruno Silvas, now that I'm thinking about it, but the middleweight Bruno Silva is the one I'm referring to. I think he's middleweight. He should still be middleweight. But, yeah, typically, some fights he just has a really good chin. Some fights he just gets put out in one shot. Chris Weidman just wasn't able to do much. I know Chris Weidman's old and everything, but, yeah. Also, sometimes Bruno Silva's got great ground game, like when he wants to shoot takedowns on Shara Bullet, but then other times he has shit ground game, like when he's going against Alex Pereira on his UFC debut. It's just shit like that, where it's just like, sometimes Brazilians have close to max stats everywhere, but one or two stats are always lacking, and that's where I think sucks. If Thailand were here, Thailand, literally anything physical would be, like, maxed out. Yeah, they'd be an S tier. They're probably the only S tier I think I'd put Thailand. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think Thailand. Thais are just built different. They have, like, war in their bloodline, you know? And obviously I have biases because I train Muay Thai, so I'm going to rep Muay Thai, obviously. That's a given. But I do think they're the least soy of all of them. I know they have lady boys, shut the fuck up. But yeah, I just think they're willing to literally go to war for 70 fights, no problem, for like a fucking dollar each. And they literally won't bat an eye. So I think they have that warrior gene in them. So their IQ is probably like their lowest stat, but everything else is typically maxed out. Maybe not their ground game, but their ground game defense is typically what I'm looking at, you know? Because you don't need a good ground game if your ground defense is so good you never get to the ground type of shit, you know? And we see a lot of Muay Thai strikers right now, actually very good with their ground defense. You know, Rafael Fiziev. I know he's not Thailand, but he's trained by the Thais, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'd rank all the races. I know there's more races I could add here, and I could really get specific, but I just wanted a general. Maybe I'll do an updated list when I'm later into my YouTube career or something. But hopefully this video doesn't, have my house burnt down and, shot and killed in public. But with all that being said, I want to thank you for making it to the end of this video. And as always, I hope you have a good day.